Let's talk supply chain. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I mean, Esker has been around for nearly 40 years, which in the
Right.
world of digital tech is a very long time, but you've really established yourselves as a market leader. You partner with the biggest brands from Microsoft to SAP. You have a global presence, and I just cannot wait to really get under the skin of what you guys are doing because it really sounds incredible. So let's dive right in. Give us an overview of Esker before we dive a little bit deeper. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you help your customers?
Yeah, 1,000 people, 15 offices around the world.
Nice.
Like you said, close to 40 years. And the reality is folks are turning to us when they're trying to free up their staff within customer service, finance, supply chain to be rock stars, better serve the customer, better serve the supplier, free up their staff to better help sales staff serve customers. Yeah, and
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I love the fact that you use the word rock stars. I mean, supply chain professionals really are rock stars, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the supply chain professionals often touch the customer more than the salesperson. And that's
Yep.
me as a salesperson saying that. I'm obviously in my role as vice president of sales, but I realize it's the supply chain, the logistics folks who often have a big deal. So it is about, I think, freeing up your. We often see customer service reps will work for a manager or manageress or whoever who rolls up to he or she who runs the VP of supply chain. So yes, supply chain folks are really important.
Love that.
Yeah.
So you say that you're more than just another cloud platform. And I really like that because it's a busy market and there's no way of getting around that. But let's talk about your mission, your history, and what really sets you apart in the market.
Um, I think what sets us apart, or I should say, why do companies invest in Esker and invest
Mhm.
further? Increasingly, we've often been seen as a best of breed for receivables or Procure-To-Pay or the order management technology. And increasingly, I think companies are realizing, oh, you guys are best of suite. I can start in one area. For example, I can automate my AP process or replace a broken process. But then if I want to go upstream and add procurement, or if I also want to improve the way I collect money or I apply cash or the way I receive questions and orders from customers, I can do all of that. So I really think companies are looking to put technology in that leverages and enhances their ERP
Mhm.
and improves the experience for the customer and the supplier and their staff.
Yeah, and I think what you're also talking about, and I talk about all the time because you can see behind me, collaboration is the future of business. And so what you're really doing is you're bringing departments together, right? In a mission of them being able to talk to each other and use the same technology so that we can have, really a collaboration of success.
Yeah, I think over the years, what folks have encouraged us to do is bring the technology so that information from, I don't know, credit, for example, can be shared with the supply chain or the customer service team.
Mhm.
Hey, these guys over here, their credit's getting worse. Or actually, their credit's fine. And by the way, they did pay you already. You should give them a greater ability to buy goods and services, extend their credit. Excuse me. So I do think folks are wanting technology that can be used across different departments
Mhm.
and they're wanting insights across different departments. So also they can make better decisions quicker, save money, and improve the experience for the customer or the supplier.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about really is the customer experience. That's how we keep customers, that's how we gain new customers, and we really have to come together as an organization to be able to do that. Now, you also talk about positive sum growth. Talk to us about what that means for brands, their employees, customers, suppliers, and for the planet.
Yeah, clearly you've been on our website, but yeah, I mean, the concept behind that is how do I put technology in that brings efficiency and automation within my enterprise without making it for painful for my customer and my supplier, for example.
Mhm.
For the planet, we're talking about moving more paper-based processes to electronic,
Right.
and obviously there's a value in that. Uh, but what we're really getting at with positive sum growth is I want to put technology in not necessarily technology that, traditionally technology was put in because it allowed companies to reduce the number of positions they have. And I think many companies have realized, no, they want to be streamlined, they want to be efficient, but more importantly, they want to free their people up. I want to free my folks up in payables, and I'll often say, to do what? What do
Right.
you want to achieve with these folks? In a year's time, when you've got that time saved, what will you do with them? What's the vision? And people will often say, I wish I had more time to do audits. I wish I had more time to build supplier relations. I wish I had more time to positively go back to the customer and say, what were the things you wanted to order and we didn't have? Or, hey, I want to get back to pre-pandemic, before the pandemic, where some customer service reps were going to see one or two customers a year
Hmm.
because they were building relationships. Customer service departments were bringing in extra revenue over and above what the salespeople were doing because they had time to go and build relationships. So when we talk about positive sum growth, it's about how do you free up your folks to go and do better things without it being at the expense of the customer or the supplier. Hey, I've got automation here. There you go. More work
Right.
for you. We're trying to get
Right.
away from that.
Absolutely. And what you also described was how important people are to this whole
Mm,
process, right? You're a
mm,
technology company and
mm.
you've been a technology company for a number of years. But what you're really talking about is how technology is enabling and empowering people to
Well,
do
if
better.
you go back in the day, when I first started at Esker, I was selling technology, terminal emulation
Mhm.
to revamp mainframes and older business systems to look more like a Windows application. The
Right.
reason we were doing it was to improve customer experience.
Mm.
Okay, so I'd come to work and and I, I I come to work and the look and feel is good, and I can navigate this thing versus trying to log into a mainframe. The users weren't going to do that. They didn't understand it. They would get confused and frustrated.
Mhm.
You go forward, what, 20, 30 years, and here we are where I think users or customers or suppliers who you interact with a technology, everyone's busy, everyone has too many emails,
Right.
everyone's got a limited amount of time, and when you put technology in, there's often there's a bit of a dip. So when you put technology in, yes, you need to give people time to test and train and get used to something new. But they've still got it's tough because I don't think change management and people are resistant to technology just because they're resistant. No, I think a
Right.
lot of the time it's because they're so busy, everything's so pressured. And so if you are going to put in new technology, we have to take the time to explain how it will work, how things are different, support them after they go live with hypercare, but
Mhm.
really understand that the technology is just one piece of it.
Yeah.
Just because you build this supplier portal where they can see when they're going to get paid, they can ask to get paid early for a slight discount, et cetera, et cetera. You need to hold them and guide their hand and make it super easy for them to adopt that technology.
Mhm.
You need to hold the hand of executives just as much as users to show here's how things are going to change, but it's going to be okay. It looks and it operates a bit different, but here's how we get you through it. I think that's become, again, back in the day, it was revamping green screens, black
Mhm.
screens, and now it's a bit more about helping people to get on board with the technology. There's always technology promises great outcomes, great efficiencies, great savings, great visibility, but there's work involved to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And so is that what, a client or a potential client can expect from you from an onboarding process?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think there's a metric out there that says something like 18 to 23%, only 18 to 23% of digital transformation projects are really successful. I
Wow.
think there's also metrics that say many CFOs they can't find the folks, they're struggling to keep their folks, but they're under massive pressure to put in digital transformation. Yet at the same time, they're very worried about is the vendor truly going to have my back? You know, okay,
Yeah.
they talk about how quickly it can be deployed, but what I need is I do need a vendor who'll stick around,
Mhm.
train the different pockets, do a second round of training, do some hypercare,
Yeah.
tell us where we can be more effective. I see you driving the engine at 65 miles an hour. That's great. You could get up to 80, but and here's what you could do to make it really efficient. I think, I see some folks out there, I don't know if the word is overpromising, but AI and artificial intelligence and machine learning, yep, it's all wrapped into this technology, these platforms
Mhm.
or this platform. But I still think people value training, coaching, you
Yeah.
know, having someone come on site, look them in the eye and say, right, I'll walk you through this. I'll
Yeah.
build you some documentation. I'll get you comfortable. It's okay. We can go over this again. I think that sort of thing is still really important.
Yeah, you're not alone, and every question is a good question. Right? There's no wrong questions here, or having to ask to get some help to really figure something out for a second time, right? They
Right.
want to feel like they're not alone. So let's take a closer look at your solutions. Let's start with Procure-To-Pay, because you were actually named 2022 Gartner Magic Quadrant report for P2P suites, which is a huge achievement. So congratulations. What does the solution do? How does it work? And what P2P challenges are you really helping to solve for your customers?
Yeah, great point. I mean, the recognition multiple years in a row now from Gartner is great, and other analysts, and they've all started to put us in their top end of their quadrant. So that's really nice to see. No doubt, we started as a best of breed solution for accounts payable, and I think of a company in Atlanta as a good example where they said, "Look, we want something that works well. We want great project management. We want aftercare. We
Hmm.
want an easy to use application. We see all that in you." And then what we want to do is put this technology in, and then we'd like to do a little bit of contract management or a little bit of procurement
Yeah,
over time, a little bit of budget control. But we want to start here, knowing you've got all those other capabilities in the toolbox. So that it's payables, it's workflow, it's imaging, it's AI. Bring the invoice in. I like to say, get it sped around the organization at the speed of 1,000 gazelles,
I like
because
that.
the supplier wants to see that they can get paid. They can get paid early. You can pay them early with your own cash. You could use Esker's embedded finance function to pay them early and
Hmm.
still earn some early payment discounts. That's important right now because treasurers are hungrier than ever to get paid.
Hmm.
Um, and also, as part of that suite, there's a supplier management piece of, so you can bring on suppliers, make sure they're not going to be bad actors and you're not going to risk your brand. There's a contract management and sourcing piece. So this technology, and I'll stand by this technology has now become self-funding because some are doing sourcing exercise, simple sourcing exercises before they even launch our payables technology or procurement technology.
Wow.
Um, Recently, somebody did that, and with no training from us, 6 sourcing events, they saved 300,000 pounds. I think it was pounds, not
What?
dollars. Pounds. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're seeing a lot of folks. They're enjoying the icing on the cake first. They're like, right, well, we're going to do a sourcing event. We're going to find a load of savings. We'll just we've paid for a load of these Esker tools now, which
Right.
in turn allows us to improve our days payable outstanding, improve our um, receivables process, etc. So it's exciting times to see um, companies really taking advantage of that platform.
Yeah. And I love to hear your passion about it and the stories, right? We want to hear about how your company is really helping. And I think you also have an order to cash solution, because that's really
Right.
all about uniting the people, which we talked about earlier, and the processes that impact customer experience, which again is really, really important, particularly in this current climate. So, what does that solution look like? And how is it facilitating collaboration and optimization that brings both the people and the processes together?
Well, traditionally, and we've been providing order management technology for over a decade. Um, it was all about, can the customer service leader, the supply chain owners, can we free up our customer service reps
Mm.
to not have to key orders in, or to make sure they're not blowing up the supply chain because they entered the wrong order. So that's where I think it started. And that was all, can we do more with less? Can we be as efficient as possible? And I think it's evolved. I think today you have a situation where customers want to know of any delays or issues or changes to their order.
Yeah.
Um, the sales reps out in the field want to be able to quickly talk to someone and know what's going on, where are the shipments, what do I need to
Mhm.
convey to my customer. The CSR there in the middle needs to know of any changes, delays, or impacts to what they're expecting. The minute an order comes in, I think they're under a lot of pressure to rush and source the materials, plan the delivery for the customer. And at the same time, there they are. There's a backdrop of, I need to to wow the customer. I need to be free to do those things.
Mhm.
Yet much of the time, I'm still receiving EDI orders that have got problems and they need to be fixed. Orders via email or PDF, orders that didn't get completed in the online shopping cart. So I've got all these different channels of how orders come in, and I've got millions of questions coming into my inbox. Some are requests, some are
Right.
issues, some are spam. this is a return request, this is a complaint, this is actually an order. This is me wanting to order, given a quote you gave me previously.
Mhm.
This is where folks have said, "Oh, it's a mess. It's a hot mess, that inbox."
Mhm.
So can you, one, help us apply AI to clean that up,
Mhm.
classify it, clean it, tell me what's an order, what is not, what is a request, what is a dispute? Just clean up the inbox, please, because I'm
Right.
dying there, right? So folks are asking for that.
Yeah.
And also, well, look, one of the companies we work with is a door manufacturing company, one of the leaders in the space, and they said, look, there's 16 different types of replies we tend to give our customers,
Okay.
and they're templated. We've got these 16 different replies, but what changes is the date, the field, the product.
Right.
You guys can automate that. You can look at what they were asking for. You can see what's going on, and you can automatically send a reply back to the customer, letting them know, here's your status, here's a
Mhm.
shipping note, here's where your product is, here's what the issues are. So I think, just as when I order on a Friday night, I'm guilty sometimes. I'll order a curry from this, and I could drive 2 miles down the road, but now, yeah, okay, I'll order it. But I'm
Yeah.
looking to see where's the driver? Where's the exactly? He seems to be hung up at those lights. I think folks want that to be proactively served.
Mhm.
And when an order comes in, what we're seeing and doing is folks are saying, hey, yes, I want your order confirmation, or at least an earlier acknowledgement to say, I've got your order, relax, you're
Right.
good.
Yeah.
People want that.
Mhm.
I think customers also want to know a shipping update,
Mhm.
and they want to know of any delays or changes, because they in
Yeah.
turn need to go and explain to their customers, oh, there's a delay, there's a change.
Yes.
But I'm letting you know so you can go and set the right expectations with your customers.
Yeah.
I've got one customer that said to me, Dan, everything is late all the time.
Mm.
He says, it wasn't always this way. So he says, any visibility you can give us that the order, the shipment date, something's changed is good, because then I can go and, you know, good news gets worse with time, or bad
Have
news
that
gets worse with time.
conversation,
Yeah, go and
right?
have that conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to technology to, yes, update the case, update Salesforce to the CRM, what's going on, so you can track and manage your folks. But really, it's all about, how do I free my people up to go wow the customer, grow revenue as a
Mhm.
result, keep the customer. You're going to have problems. And Gartner says what keeps customers is how quickly do you fix the issue.
Yeah.
Not just how quickly do you place the order, but it's really about how quickly do you solve the problems.
Yeah.
And people solve problems.
Mhm.
You, when they have the ability to think,
It's
to
time.
understand it, to see what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's such a critical factor right now, right? Especially when people are, really wanting to get new customers, right? Get in front of new customers. I mean, you think about the marketing and the marketing dollars that need to go out into consumer land to just even be able to get one customer. I mean, that
Mm,
customer is very, very, very valuable.
mm.
And you're right. It all comes down to communication, because when we're in that moment, we're dealing with that shipment, everything's right here. But what we don't sometimes realize is how it's affecting, like the tentacles, right? How it's affecting everybody either downstream or upstream, and what that actually means to them and their everyday, and the expectations that they have on their side and the communication that they have to bring. And without being able to have that information, they can't communicate, they can't set expectations, and then everybody just gets out of joint.
Mm.
Right. And so I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
technology can help with that. And that's what we're talking about today, is how your technology is enabling. And a lot of times we talk about the technology and the optimization and what it can actually functionally do.
Mm.
But today we're really talking about what it means to people. And I love that, because that's such a different approach.
Yeah, that's one of my jobs. Is obviously my predominant job is coaching, 45, 50 salespeople. And I think one of my favorite conversations to have with a potential customer is to say, okay, what's going on? What do you want? What's going well? Most sales reps
Yeah.
are going to tell me about your pain, and I'm rather talk about, okay, big picture, long term. If you do this,
Hmm.
how does success show up?
Hmm.
How are you going to notice that this project was successful? How are your customers going to notice? How are
Yeah.
your suppliers going to notice? Don't tell them. No calling them to give them. By the way, we put in a new technology. When you start to notice when you put in new technology or new procedures, and the customers and the suppliers start congratulating or commenting, something changed here. What have you guys done?
Yeah.
So I always find it interesting to ask that question. Why are you driving it personally? Why are you personally motivated? What are the outcomes you care for yourself? It's always good to get into that. And I often find there are, back to people, often these department leaders or managers are doing so because they're trying to protect their people or help their people grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so important. Now, you and I talked about onboarding and how you really support the customer in the onboarding process. Can you run us through what it looks like for the integration? Because a lot of times, I'm sitting here listening to a technology company talk about how their technology can support them, but sometimes I'm like, well, but what does that integration look like? Because I've got multiple different systems doing different things, and I understand that this is an amazing solution for me, but I also need to go back to my IT department and talk to them about helping me integrate this technology.
Yeah. So there's a whole suite there when it comes to the integration. And, I think we've worked with something like 80, 85 different ERPs, and many companies will have multiple ERPs. In fact, you mentioned Gartner. One of the reasons, I've had folks turn to us after they've spoken to Gartner is a lot of companies have realized, oh, Esker's pretty good, regardless if I'm talking about payables, receivables, or supply chain process.
Right.
Esker's pretty good at working with multiple ERPs, which means I can go and, I work with some CROs who've got aggressive growth goals. They want to acquire companies quickly. They might be acquiring 3 or 5 companies a year, and each one of those companies has a different ERP, a different instance or version of that ERP. And how do you quickly absorb companies without having to get them all on your ERP overnight?
Right.
Most companies are probably going to try and standardize on one ERP over time if they can, but in some cases that's not practical. So I often describe Esker as the digital mop. So regardless of how your customer or supplier wants to send information to you, or which companies you buy and what different ERP they have,
Yep.
this digital mop, it'll mop it all up. And that's important because it's important when if you're growing and you're acquiring companies, well, you need to have if you were to choose vendor Esker, then you've got a company that's used to work with many different ERPs and system of record, and has the ability to connect either through the native tools that ERP offers. Middleware, Boomi, I'll give Boomi a shout. We work with those folks quite a bit. If needed, RPA, EDI, or other direct web services approaches. So for us, it's a whole, again, it's back to a whole toolbox of different options.
Well, and let's talk about that because, like you said, you've got RPA, AI, you've got mobile functionality. I think it also supports sending and receiving faxes, and I think it supports Excel as well. So let's talk a little bit more about finding that balance between helping to drive innovation and digitization in the industry, but also meeting the customers where they are.
Yeah, good point. And as I was sketching out some notes on this morning, I was thinking about this topic. So if customers are sending you orders or inquiries, they might send them in via EDI, PDF, flat file. They could come in through your e-commerce platform. But at some point in time, that data needs to be extracted, validated, tested against the master data in the ERP, and posted or vouchered in. So those are all different formats. It could be in the payables world, you could be receiving flat files, paper, PDF, nudges from a portal to go and upload an invoice or download an invoice. And in the receivables world and the payables world, actually, you might be sending out or receiving paper mail, email. You might have to go and correspond with various different government platforms. And this is becoming more and more popular in Europe and Asia. And it's already there in Latin America, where if you want to go, if you do business, you pay suppliers, or if you build customers, typically the government wants to know, because we have aging populations. They want to cut out fraud, and they want to know what revenues they're entitled to. So we're moving into an age where often there's an intermediary, a compliance angle needed too, so that if you're going to do business, you've got to loop those folks in using whatever technology standard or whatever platform they want to be a part of. Obviously, Esker can help companies there.
Awesome. I love that because, again, it's not about transforming them to what your system can do for them. It's about meeting them where they are. And it sounds like you've got a variety of different functionality to be able to do that. And of course, every organization, like you said, comes with a variety of different challenges that you have to solve for. So you work with customers all over the world. You serve a range of industries. And so if I'm sitting here listening to what you're saying, and I really like what you're saying, I'm thinking that Esker could be the solution for me, who do I have to be or look like as an ideal client?
Well, don't discriminate. If we're a good fit for you, well, we're not the type of folks who are going to say, I think we're joking aside. I think a lot of companies, if there's particular niche, chemical, retail, manufacturing, life science, building materials, particularly good there.
Mm.
But media actually, there's a variety of companies and sectors. What I did there is I just named off the top of my head some of the companies where we've done a lot of business. I think certainly anybody who's doing business globally, running multiple ERPs, yes, SAP, Oracle, the top 10, 20 ERPs, we commonly work there. But each year there'll be some companies that we work with, and I've never even heard of the ERP, the system of record. And reality is, if they care about using a tool that's easy to use, for payables, folks will often use us because they like the interface. If they're looking for something that's easy to use so they can send their invoices, set up chasing, online payment reminders, and apply the cash, people often use us there. And then the payables tool also. I mean, I think if folks care about a user experience and a workflow that is easy, that's a reason folks will often choose Esker over others. Sometimes if they don't care about that, they might go with native ERP, not to pick on the ERPs too much, but I think often folks, if they really care about user experience and they will go with Esker. I've even one of the biggest projects we've ever had, I didn't expect to win it. They called us up and said, "Let's negotiate." What do you mean, let's negotiate? Are you going to choose us? I actually said, at this point, I've been in sales 20 years, and I'm kind of surprised that you called. What's going on? What did I miss? And they said, the users. What they said to us is, they said, you spent more time with the users. You got to know those folks. They appreciated that. They also said that they would be more willing to use your tool.
Wow.
And I said, oh, right, okay. And that, I was speaking to a former customer who's moved on to a different company not long back, and she said, "What I really enjoyed about working with your company, Dan, is your philosophy is not just, oh well, the minute the senior stakeholder leaves the room, you guys don't care,
Right.
and you're not rushing to just get a deal and okay, now on to the next customer." Most companies I work with here at Esker, they're at least been using us for 10 years, 5 years, 10 years is what I expect. I mean, I've been here 25 years, so I guess you could say I'm not that keen on change. Or you could say, well, actually, I really like this company because it's a different mindset. The mindset is for the long term. The mindset is put the customer. We know we have to get the customer successful. We know people turn over. Stakeholders, users, they turn over a lot. And back to customer experience, we realize, therefore, we have to continually keep training these folks.
Yeah.
It's not like in the old days where you sold a load of licenses and moved on. Now I think people can vote with their feet. Okay, yes, they have a cloud agreement, a contract, but you're going to be judged on, are my users using it? Are my approvers using it? Are you bringing the efficiency as well? So I think there's almost, when you work with a SaaS vendor nowadays, there's an obligation for both the customer and the SaaS vendor to keep fine-tuning and improving and training people who come in. The positive side is this: when you do that, people leave and they take you with them to the next company.
Yeah.
And that's almost 30% of our business, which is I'm not going to say money grows on trees, but it's been a deliberate focus, and that's been the side benefit.
Well, and you're part of the continuous improvement for an organization as well, right? Which I think is a really, really, really big deal. So now it's time for the case study portion of this conversation. And I know you've given us some amazing stories thus far, but I really want you to dive a little bit deeper. Talk to me about somebody, one of your customers that came to you? What was the challenge they came to you with? What was the solution that you provided? And what was the ROI or benefit that they saw from working with you?
This is hard because of, you know,
You've got
there's so
lots.
many case studies, and the solutions are in different areas. But if I pick on order management, I go to NVIDIA because most folks have heard of NVIDIA as one of the, you know, the biggest growing companies, the technology behind the self-driving car, or one of the key technologies there. And, you know, most people have heard of NVIDIA, and they're an impressive company. They said, look, we're trying to wow our customers. I don't know if you noticed, Dan, but real estate's pretty expensive here in California, in Northern California. Yep. Can't keep adding staff to this process. And I love their quote. They said, we could probably build this ourselves, Dan. But you're halfway down the track. So we figure that you already got such a head start on us that we don't need to.
At least
You
they're
know,
honest.
and I like, you know, they've obviously decided to focus on far better things, and they do a great job. But they went from order entry that was taking an average of 10 minutes, they cut it to 10 seconds.
Wow.
Which in turn allowed them to you know, absorb 20-30% growth, and to really, well, more now, but to really go free up their people to go better serve their customers. So I love that story because obviously I love the fact that NVIDIA said we respect and we recognize what you've done.
Yeah.
I'll give a shout out to NVIDIA because we do use some of their technology, and the results they achieved. You know, and also I think when I think about receivables and payables, the story what we often see there is companies have achieved 20-30% growth, and
Amazing.
not had to go and find more folks. And it's funny how often people will come up to me at a trade show and say, "Oh, you saved my bacon." I said, well, "What do you mean?" They said, "Well, without you guys, we would have had to have." I heard this just in Salt Lake last week. We would have needed 3 or 4 times more folks in the department, which we would never have been able to get. You know, to keep up with the service levels, and to
Right.
maintain the receivables and age debt at where it is, or to keep our day sales outstanding where it is, we would need 3 times more people. There's no way we could have done it without the technology.
Wow.
My challenge is then getting that on paper and turning it into a
Right.
case study before they walk past at the trade show. I'm like, stop, you know. So, and that's happened to me so many times that it always makes me chuckle, you know.
I
Yeah.
love that. And it just goes to show, you know, who you are as a company, what you're actually doing, and the impact that you're making, not only to the industry, but also to organizations globally. So talk to me about the future. What does the future hold for Esker? What can we plan on seeing from you coming up over the next couple of years?
I think folks want more predictive insights. I think folks want they want the efficiencies, of course. They want visibility of where their spend is going. They want to know where there's opportunity or threat. And I think that's things like, oh, we think these guys over here, this bank account doesn't seem to be theirs, or we think perhaps this supplier you're trying to onboard, there could be some risks there. Be aware of that. We think predictive insights is really hot for the accounts receivable space.
Yeah.
Invoice to cash. Hey, there's, you know, during the pandemic, as an example, those associated with the restaurant industry took a hit early on. And I think what folks would have benefited from is technology that said, these companies in this space, their credit is perhaps not as good, or their credit has been changing, and therefore you do need to tighten up, or therefore you need to, you know, tighten up your policies and chase them more aggressively, or change the language you use and inspect that a lot more carefully. Or hey, these folks over here, you know, who do business with others using the Esker platform, they seem to be getting paid faster than you. They're getting 2 or 3 days. They're getting their money 2 or 3 days faster,
Imagine.
which is really important right now in the age of working capital. So there may be an opportunity for you to go and engage with those folks to get paid early, and these are sort of things that would lead to them paying you earlier. I think folks want those insights, that intelligence, the call to action, so to speak.
Absolutely. And so that's what we're going to be able to plan on seeing from Esker. Well, Dan, I really love that. I think we could record a whole other episode and still have more to talk about. In an increasingly uncertain world, business success is multifaceted. Beyond cost cutting, it's about relationship building and long-term value creation. And at the heart of Esker's global cloud platform are intelligent technologies that enable their customers to achieve their larger business goals, ultimately creating a better business experience for everyone. So if you'd like to find out more, you can check them out at esker.com, esker.com. And a massive thanks to Dan for joining me today and to the team at Esker for making this episode happen. Dan, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, I'd love to do another session. Really enjoyed it. So if you'll have me back, that would be great.
Oh, we sure will.
Right.